everybody. Oh, hi. Couple more people coming in. Just a couple. Hi, I'm Lisa Tanner. I am a co-chair of the event with Jim Baudino. I'm a senior vice president, group account director at RPA here in LA. And welcome to ThinkLA Cannabis 2.0. We really appreciate you guys coming.
All right. Yes. So this is our second cannabis-related event. So over the last year, there's been a lot of things going on in the industry. So you're going to hear from a lot of great speakers. But just wanted to get a quick show of hands. Who's new to ThinkLA in the room? Who's new?
A lot of people.
Yeah, that's what we expected. This event, and it really brings in a lot of people that are new to ThinkLA. So I know we wanted to talk about
so Jim and I are on the ThinkLA Idea Council, which activates the majority of the events for ThinkLA. There's kind of 3 different boards. For those of you that don't know what ThinkLA is, altogether we've been around for about 12 years, and we've grown really into the premier marketing organization in Southern California. We connect our community through educational, social, philanthropical events throughout the year, and foster networking and relationships amongst people in the community. We really try to inspire and elevate the awareness of our region's creativity and innovation to national businesses. We offer professional development classes and workshops for agencies, sales, and marketing individuals and professionals at all levels. We're proud to have over 130 corporate members and hundreds of individual, thousands actually, of professional and student members. So we really wanted to thank you guys for coming out today. If you want any more information, Jim and I and a handful of people can answer for you after the event.
Okay. So who's actually from the cannabis industry that's here today? Okay, perfect. And as the rest of you are interested in the cannabis industry or want to get in, whether personal or your business, whether your company is sponsoring you or not, they know you're here or not. So there's always some of those. So a few announcements about upcoming events. I think, all right. The ThinkLA Diversity, Inclusion, and Gender Committee presents a screening of very important film, Cracking the Codes, The System of Racial Inequity, on August 21st. And it's an open, moderated discussion will follow. And then ThinkLA is about community. And our community starts with networking. So join us on August 22nd at our quarterly mixer at the Nickel Mine in West LA. And registration will open up on Tuesday for Ad Jam, the Battle of the Advertising Agency Bands at the Novo in downtown LA, September 27th. See, for all of you that don't know about ThinkLA, once you go to one of the events, then you'll realize how crazy the ad and marketing industry is in Los Angeles. So you get all of the top major agencies, a lot of the top brands that come together, share, you get inspired, and just network, and it's fun. And so hopefully you'll look at this and want to join, hopefully with whether it's yourself, and I'm part of the membership committee, and so I may be hitting you up after, whether it's yourself or your company, we'd love to have you join so you can be part of these types of events.
And of course, we wouldn't be able to be here without everybody at ThinkLA who helped us put the event on. So we wanted to thank them, as well as we had about 10 committee members who helped put all this together and get speakers together to come present to everybody tonight. So our presenting sponsor is Basis by Centro and Papa and Barkley, and our in-kind sponsor is House Beer. So we really wanted to give everybody that's a sponsor a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so just a quick overview. Over the last year, the multi-billion-dollar cannabis industry has gone through some significant changes. Cannabis is now medically legal in 30 states and recreationally legal in 9 states plus DC in the U.S. So we've been through political ups and downs, too many to even stress. I'm surprised we got hair still. And sure, you in the cannabis industry know what that means. And we've also seen several companies go public on the Canadian and the U.S. exchanges. And so these are firsts. This is amazing progress that the industry has made. And we've also seen a lot of action in the international market. So Canada becoming the first G7 country to fully legalize cannabis, and several other countries decriminalizing or making it medically legal. So while it's been a long, hard road to get to this point, It seems that the green rush is here to stay. Okay, but now marketing and advertising, this is when this kicks in. Because with a legalized market, and when you can actually go out there and you can market your product to your consumers, this is when our industry really kicks into high gear, and it's extremely important. And so we've put together a really great panels today, really great speakers to come and share some of that insight with you guys. And we will want to first get a word from our sponsor. Don't want to forget that.
There we go.
So I'd like to invite Michael Thill from Centro, our presenting sponsor, to the stage to say a few words.
Come on up.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Jim and Lisa. So my team told me, as we were reviewing this speech last night, Nidia, that I need to spice it up a little bit with some cannabis puns. But I will be blunt. You're not going to hear any tonight, I promise. Not from me. We're going to keep it above the line. So first off, thank you so much to ThinkLA for putting this event together. Thank you all for joining. As Jim and Lisa mentioned, my name is Michael Thill. I have been with Centro for 11 years, which is crazy to think. As employee 45, we're now 800 employees. And later this year, we will probably activate about $500 million in digital media billings. Super exciting for us. We're based in Santa Monica here in Southern California. I currently lead our agency development team. And a lot of our conversations are really focused on our technology basis that really helps streamline the inefficiencies of digital media, which we're going to go into. Anyone here who focuses on digital media knows it's incredibly antiquated and very manual, which is kind of ironic for digital media, but that's why we exist. So you're probably wondering, knowing that about Centro, why on earth are we sponsoring the ThinkLA Cannabis marketing event? I'd say in the past 11 years I've been at Centro, we've been true to our mission, which is really to trailblaze the industry and really provide strong thought leadership for digital media. It's incredibly daunting. It's incredibly fragmented, and there's a lot that goes into it, understanding all the different partners and the spaces and opportunities. So at Centro, we're trying to lead the way to really create tools and services that allow us to streamline a very daunting media process. So with the new opportunities with cannabis, we're realizing that there is a lot of wild, wild west characteristics, which isn't very far off from how it was back in the day with programmatic. Anyone familiar with programmatic, you'll know it was a very wild, wild west sort of scenario back in the day. But brands and agencies would turn to Centro really to understand, what does this mean? What should I expect? What's really important to me? And so they turned to Centro, and we had the tools and services really to help with that. And so as we're kind of navigating the cannabis marketing space now, we're doing the exact same thing. Centro is really leading the way to understand what are the capabilities and opportunities, trying to navigate what's possible in this digital media industry right now. We're trailblazing to open up new opportunities for our cannabis brands and agencies, and also utilizing our tools and services to do really great work together. We started working in this space probably about a year ago, and when we started, we really noticed and recognized there's very limited inventory sources to advertise cannabis brands online. But over the past year, we've actually opened up those opportunities tenfold. So when we look at the ways how we can help cannabis brands and agencies, I'd say and highlight, we vet through and can provide very agnostic views of the digital media landscape. We look at every possible vendor and every possible inventory source to identify what are the right solutions for our clients and go to bat for you because of the amount of volume that we actually do in the space. And because of our technology, it's very streamlined and very efficient. So quickly, just about basis and our technology. So this is a tool that powers agencies and marketers who want to navigate the digital landscape more effectively and more efficiently. And you're probably wondering, what does that mean? When you look at the space right now, there's a lot of different marketing tools out there. They're very disparate. They don't speak to one another. You have search, you have social, you have programmatic. There's a lot of different buzzwords out there. All these platforms don't speak to one another. So what we did at Centro was actually create a DSP programmatic foundation and couple it with the workflow features and benefits of workflow automation and kind of merge those into one. So when you look at Basis, it's really the only tool out there that's automating all the digital media process and nuances. And what's this mean? Well, the benefits are that it's better for the team. They can work smarter. It removes all the manual process and duplicate data entry, which typically leads to human error. And it also allows agencies to realize more profitability and brands to recognize stronger ROI, which we all want. I had one more joke in here. I'm not going to say it. So in any case, there's a few of us here tonight. We'd love to say hello, introduce you to Centro, our technology basis, and more importantly, really open you up to the opportunities and solutions that are in the digital advertising world for cannabis, because we've identified a lot. We're really excited to talk about it further. So thank you for joining. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you, ThinkLA, and I'll turn it over to Lisa. Thanks.
All right, we're gonna be your comic relief. But like last year, it was like the 101 of cannabis, and this year, as you just heard, we're diving deep, and that's why we want to really get an understanding of what technology and how data is being used, and really what our brand's doing. So we're really taking it at that. That's why it's called the 2.0. And so hopefully you'll be able to get that. And we're not going through. We're cutting up the bullshit. Everyone knows cannabis is legal in California, and but now I'll let Lisa take it away.
Yeah, comic relief on that end. Thank you, Michael. So now I'm going to welcome Michelle Garakian, who's the Assistant Executive Director, City of Los Angeles Department of Cannabis Regulation. Michelle, if you can come to the stage, and Tom Zuber, who's the managing partner of Zuber, Lawler, and Del Duca, LLP. And they're going to have a fireside chat about the state of cannabis industry in the state of California.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Tom.
So, Michelle,
More conversational.
pleasure to see you again. And, of course, I know what you do, but for the sake of the audience, why don't you tell us a bit about your important work with the City of Los Angeles?
Sure. First, I just want to say thank you to ThinkLA for having me here tonight. Kat Packer was supposed to be here. Unfortunately, fortunately, she is on a flight up to San Francisco right now to talk with other important regulators about important state business. So we want her up there because she's doing a lot of good work. So I'm going to try my best to fill her shoes, but it's probably impossible. I am the new Assistant Executive Director for the city's youngest department, which is the Department of Cannabis Regulation. It is our mission to regulate recreational cannabis sales in the city of Los Angeles. And there are two executive assistant directors at the department under Kat. One is in charge of licensing and compliance. Who are the cannabis folks in the industry, cannabis industry folks in the audience? Okay, that's the guy you want to talk to, because he's the guy that is regulating all, focusing on all licensing compliance. So if you have navigated through our very easy to use, and I'm not being sarcastic, online application form, you have probably had interactions with Jason. So he's more internally facing and slightly externally facing. My focus is on education, public outreach, and policy. So in that realm, I kind of see how we can look at various tiers of public policy that are affecting cannabis from federal, state, local, and county jurisdictions, and how that meshes together. What's our public outreach to the community? So this is businesses, this is community, this is consumers, and then what's our collateral material looking like? So yeah, I wear a lot of hats.
Great. So, of course, everybody here in Los Angeles is focused on the licensing process. We're entering phase 2 now. So why don't we start with that, since that's on the mind of at least many in the audience. How's it going?
It is going. It is going. It's not a surprise to a lot of people who are in the cannabis industry here that the Department of Cannabis Regulation will be celebrating its 1-year anniversary next week, which we're excited about. But we are still a small department. Probably up until like 3 months ago, I think we were a department of 3. Now we are a department of 10. Hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be up to about 20, and then that will continue to grow as industry grows with it. The first phase of licensing was released in January, and that was pretty much for pre-ICO folks, so folks that that were Prop D dispensaries. Those folks have temporary approvals and, submitted an application. For those folks that have pre-ICO facilities, approval and denial letters are going to be coming out next week. So we might be hearing from some people. But call Jason. Just kidding. And so we just opened up the second phase of licensing, which essentially is the supply chain. So it's manufacturers, cultivators, distributors, testing labs. Yes. And ultimately, all of these were the folks that were actually providing product or some sort of ancillary service to all the pre-ICO dispensaries. And so that has now been, I think, what is it? It's April 9th, so it's been 9 days. I do have some stats here because I can't remember all of this stuff on my own, but we did have also a commission meeting today, so if anybody was at the commission meeting, you probably already heard this. So we have 156 businesses with temporary approval or license to sell medicinal and adult use cannabis products throughout the city of Los Angeles. So please visit those dispensaries because we want to normalize the industry and we want to ensure that people are purchasing safe product. As far as the non-retail commercial cannabis activity, as of yesterday, we have received 210 applications. Of those 210 applications, 177 applications have been submitted to the department. 33 of those applications are in progress. 106 of those applications have paid, and it covers over 218 commercial cannabis activities. So, yeah, it's going gangbusters. I think, wow. Yeah, there's a lot of activity.
Well, one of the focuses in the room will be on, of course, the shift of the marketing community toward cannabis. It's very exciting, a lot of opportunity here. My law firm does a lot of work with fortune companies, with funds, but also we've been in the cannabis space for over 12 years, and we represent some of the leading brands. And in that context, cannabis companies are now focused on making their own shift toward, as opposed to local marketing, to more aggressive marketing, national marketing, especially with CBD companies now starting to enter that sort of phase of the marketing growth life cycle. So as we look at cannabis companies here in the state of California, many, of course, of those relevant regulations are governed at the state level, at the federal level. Some are governed by at the municipal level. For instance, the local advertising, the event advertising, that sort of thing. So as far as cannabis lounges, cannabis events, you have regulations at the municipal level, at the LA level, varying jurisdiction by jurisdiction. How is that playing out, area by area, within LA?
Okay, so as of right now, most of you guys know there is not an ordinance regulating consumption and or events in the city of Los Angeles, which essentially makes it illegal. Again, I'm not didn't hear this from me, but cannabis is legal in the state of California, so as smart people, you're probably going to figure out a loophole to something like that. And as a department, we are not unaware of that. But it is illegal. So you cannot go to the DCR or to the city or to the Department of City Planning or Building and Safety or Fire and get a permit to have a cannabis lounge or an event in Los Angeles. However, that does not mean that there is not appetite to do that. Councilmember Herb Wesson has been a major advocate of not just of regulating and helping to devise these kind of ordinances in the city of Los Angeles, but it also creates a lot of tax revenue for the city of LA, which can go towards a number of really amazing things like fixing our roads and providing services to homeless individuals. So I think the city of LA is probably going to end up taking up this issue within the next year. That is what I'm hearing, so I wouldn't be surprised. However, we do know the state regs came out a couple of weeks ago, and cannabis events are allowed on county fairground land, and then something called, I'm sure someone could probably scream it out to me, but District Agricultural Association areas. So in the city of LA, there's literally only 2 places where this exists. It's the Coliseum, which is down by USC, and then there's some place in the valley. And I don't really know where it is. And I don't even know if they have a space to accommodate it. So a lot of y'all probably heard that recently there was a permit that was pulled from the Pomona Fairgrounds. That was the decision of the Pomona City Council. And so the way that the state laws kind of interface with the local laws is that local jurisdictions have priority. And so state laws are going to be a lot more permissive. And then they're going to leave it up to the cities, all throughout the state of California, whether or not they even want to legalize this stuff, whether or not they want to just do medicinal, whether they want to do commercial, what do they want to do manufacturing, whether they want to have consumption on site, whether or not they want to have events, etc. West Hollywood, we're in West Hollywood right now. We would probably consider that like the cannabis Disneyland of LA County because they are moving like gangbusters, and we're watching them very closely. We're a much larger jurisdiction. Los Angeles, if you don't know, city of Los Angeles, or the county of Los Angeles is comprised of 88 cities. The city of Los Angeles is the largest city in the county, comprised of 4.9 million people. So we are not only the second largest city in the country, but we are the largest cannabis regulatory agency in the country as a result of that, per capita of people. Again, this is a year-old department. This is a brand new, never regulated industry. So there are a lot of challenges. But going back to the lounges and to the events, it's really going to come down to the city council and political will. And I do think that the political will is there. But yeah, so that's the answer to that.
So,
but we got there.
So it sounds like there's a lot of progress being made, and also there's a lot still in flux. So it makes it very exciting and challenging too.
Right.
So as an IP attorney, I really don't know as much about the regulatory work on the ground, though my colleagues at the law firm do. So let me ask you, part of the hesitation, I think, for some of the folks in the room that are not yet working with cannabis companies but intend to or would like to, is, okay, what happens when I start doing that work? Am I associated with the currently illegal quality of the actions of these cannabis companies? So as an example, if, say, I'm an advertiser or I'm a marketer and I'm helping my cannabis brand get out there, and I do that by organizing a cannabis event, and my client is adventurous and proactive and decides to go ahead and make it a cannabis event without my knowledge, and starts to hand out those products. Am I, as the marketing vendor who organized that event, liable for that behavior?
You are a lawyer.
I am a lawyer.
I'm going to ask you that question. I'm just going to toss it right back to you, Tom.
Well, I'm going to have to. I'm a patent lawyer. I'm a trademark lawyer. So I'm going to go ahead and take an educated. I'm going to go ahead and take an educated guess, and I'd say that that's probably a bad idea.
Okay. Right. I mean, everybody. You guys are businesses. You're ad firms. Some of you guys have been in business for 2 years. Some of you guys have been in business for 100 years. You have in-house counsel. You need to do your due diligence. You need to know what are the legal dispensaries out there, who has temporary approvals, and not just in the city of LA, all over the state. And this is not just for dispensaries. This also goes for manufacturers, cultivators, delivery services, testing labs. So if your client is operating illegally, I'm not going to advise you that you shouldn't be servicing them, but you should probably talk to your lawyer. And that is my question, or my answer to that.
That was quite lawyerly. That was...
I just had to send the photo release form to my in-house counsel to see if I could sign it. And I got two conflicting opinions, and I was like, lawyers.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So another fun topic, social equity, and this is.
I do want to go back to the advertising stuff because that's what you guys are here to hear about. So, what another great person that should have been on this panel is someone from the state, because the state really does kind of govern. Thank you. There's only 10 minutes left. The state does govern packaging. So I hope that you guys also have your in-house counsel going through the proposed state regs. Right now, they are up for public comment period for the next 40-something days or so. There's actually going to be a public comment event at the Biltmore in downtown on August 14th. They're not the BCC, which is the Bureau of Cannabis Control, is not literally going to say out loud every single rule and regulation, but folks are going to be there commenting. The state does govern what packaging looks like. So you guys should be aware of that if you are doing any sort of packaging with your client, with your legal client. The state does govern, packaging. I know I'm missing something else. I'm looking. Anyway, What we govern, anybody can. Labeling, yes, labeling. Pardon me?
Age of intended audience.
Oh, yes. Well, that's obvious. 21 and over. But what we govern, and actually, when I say we, I say the royal we at the city family, because cannabis in the city of Los Angeles is, though licensing and applications are kind of regulated by the department, we work with a variety of different departments that also engage in cannabis regulation. So, for example, let's say that you are a cultivator or you're a manufacturer. You're going to apply. You're going to go through our application process. You're going to have to go through a pre-inspection approval. So then you're outside of DCR's hand, and now you are with the lovely Department of Building and Safety and the fire department. They do a lot of things a lot different, and they are by code and to the book. So if you've ever actually built a home or built an apartment or built a shopping mall in the city of Los Angeles, you are going to be exposed to the same type of like by the book regulations as any other developer or any other business in the city of Los Angeles. So we have fire, we have DBS, we have the city attorney, we have LAPD. So there's like a whole cannabis gang, and we get together all the time and we talk about what's going on in the city of Los Angeles from enforcement, etc. But planning, who is also part of the gang, they actually have an ordinance out, and I'll actually tell you what is available. So this is something really important regarding the advertising of cannabis for retail locations, because manufacturing is not really going to matter. You guys are probably going to be in some nondescript building far deep into the valley, or downtown, who knows. But ultimately, there are local rules and regulations governing on-site and off-site advertising for dispensaries and for retail locations. So what I would recommend is that your in-house counsel, again, or whoever is the policy person that you have on staff, go and read that ordinance. It's a 5-page ordinance, but essentially, pretty much everything's prohibited. But what is not prohibited for offsite is that you can essentially have advertising that's 700 feet from, and I will tell you this, a school, public park, public library, alcohol, drug abuse, recovery and treatment facility, daycare center, public supportive housing, and public supportive housing. So if you are not advertising anywhere 700 feet anywhere near that, you're pretty okay. So you'll probably drive around the city and you're going to see a lot of ease ads out there. I am sure that their in-house counsel has already done that mapping through some sort of GIS system to determine that they are not 700 feet within any of these facilities. If it's on-site retail location, you have to have your temporary approval sign in front of your retail location. You cannot, like if you're doing, let's say you're doing advertising for like a company that sells cannabis products, you cannot publicly, or a retail facility cannot publicly display what products are inside. So think of a liquor store, and there's like Coors Light is here, and like, this craft beer, and like cigarettes. Like that will not happen on the outside of a cannabis retail storefront. And there can't be any like spinny guys that are like spinning signs or sandwich boards or anything. I mean, it's very, very limited. It's just like the name of the business, your temporary approval, and even inside the store, there is regulations on what can be advertised. I don't think we're answering questions, not yet, but I will say that probably a lot of your business is gonna land in print and digital media. So that's like my thought on that, personal thought on that. So.
Thank you. Also, I will do a plug. I'm on the CCIA Intellectual Property Board, the California Cannabis Industry Association. They're very involved in lobbying and influencing state regulations relating to cannabis. So if you'd like to have a voice, it's a great organization, and I recommend that you get in touch with a representative of that organization. So I don't think we have too much time yet. I do want to touch on social equity because so many people are focused on it here in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is a leader, as you obviously know, Michelle, and as many of you know. For those of you who don't, Los Angeles has it's called a social equity program, literally, and it's designed to give a leg up to underprivileged segments of the community that have been negatively affected by cannabis laws over the past decades, and so this is it's a model for the rest of the country. Other municipalities, other cities are talking about enacting now their own social equity programs. So in that context, can you talk a little bit about it, and also what's coming down the pike? Are there any other innovations that the rest of the nation can look forward to?
Sure. Yeah. So there are 5 other jurisdictions in the state right now that have social equity programs.
And to be clear, this is relating. It's a leg up as far as the licensing process. So here in Los Angeles, as we enter into phase 2 of the licensing process, it's to give them a leg up on actually obtaining the licenses that come out, getting some of them to the underprivileged segments.
That is one benefit of the social equity program. So phase 2, for example, it is required all phase 2 applicants have to be social equity applicants. So we have 3 tiers of social equity. Tier 1, which is 51% ownership, Tier 2, which is 31.5% ownership, or 31% ownership, and Tier 3, which is more of an incubator type of relationship, where you actually have someone like investing cash, capital, what if that means cash or space, etc. So that is kind of like the fundamentals of our social equity program, and it is intended definitely to give a leg up to those folks that are in disadvantaged communities or have prior cannabis convictions or arrests. It's something that's really important to the mayor. It's something that's really important to city council. So right now, kind of the standing of our social equity program is that it does provide priority processing. And if you've ever, again, done business in the city of LA with any city agencies, aside from cannabis, you are going to know that having priority processing for anything that requires a permit in the city of LA, essentially time equals money. So that is a huge, huge benefit. Now, what we hope to do, and this is hopefully what's coming down the pipe, and not hopefully, this will come down the pike because there is political will there. There's actually within our ordinance, we are going to be getting funded by the city to provide business and technical assistance, to provide capital matching opportunities, to bring in vendors to do kind of recruitment, one-on-one clinics with social equity applicants, workshops with social equity applicants, a variety of different things. And this should be done essentially and available probably in the fall. So we're really excited about that. And yeah, it's a very exciting program. It's something Kat is massively passionate about. It's pretty much, at the end of the day, I think when you're working in the city, I mean, cannabis is great, and we're happy that it's legal and that we're giving everybody permits. But really, it's for people who work in government at least, the social equity aspect is really why you're here. It's because it makes the most sense, and not a lot of people know when they voted. 84% of Californians voted in favor of legalizing cannabis in the state of California. They didn't realize that was the largest social justice measure ever approved. And the reason why it was is because ultimately it said that anybody with a previous cannabis conviction or an arrest had the opportunity to appeal or expunge their record.
So we're getting the nod here.
So I'm just going to say that.
Michelle, I want to say thank you. I know she's very, very busy, so thank you for allowing us to ask some questions. I want to say thank you to Lisa and to Jim for having us. Linda, thank you for inviting us. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes. So appreciate that. Good.
Tight ship here.
Yeah, yes. So now Greg Aparian is up next to talk about audience segmentation. So I'll let him take it away.
Mic drop. I'm done.
Mic drop. And you know how to work that.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Greg, and I am the co-founder and CEO of a new cannabis startup called 3 Wells, and feels pretty awesome to be in this business for the first time over the past year. My background is in marketing, advertising, and the agency business, and I wanted to be in this business and apply all that I learned over the years in digital marketing, right? So the topic that I'm going to be talking about here today, if it works.
Give it 1 sec.
Well, as I'm waiting here, my company is called 3Wells, and 3Wells is an online destination that targets 50-year-olds and older. So when I went out and I looked into the business and the space, I didn't really see anybody, number one, really targeting, and number two, no one was serving this audience, and there's a lot of reasons why. So I'm here today to help you understand the opportunity in this business and every other to basically apply this tactic here. So let's look at a little bit of data, right? We're looking at a market that by 2030 is going to be $75 billion, right? And in comparison, in 2016, the wine industry was about 63 billion. So we're moving fast. We're getting there much faster, right? And to make money, you've got to spend money. So advertising then was about 2 billion, right? We are nowhere near that in the cannabis. We're about $2. But we're moving up fast and hopefully faster than a lot of us really are ready for. But we have such a big audience here. So 115 million people in the United States right now alone have tried cannabis and use cannabis. And of that subset, 35 million use it regularly. And of those people, 62% of those regular users are for legalization, and that number keeps growing, right? And I don't know if you've done the math yourself, but basically what we're learning here is that the average spend that they're spending every year is $1,500. And that's the average, right? There are many others that are spending a lot more than that. So what does all of that really mean for us? And the market opportunity here is just undeniable, right? We all know that, that's why we're here, but it just keeps growing and growing. And this consumer base is not new to consuming, right? They've been consuming for a while, they've been consuming other things, but the bottom line is that they're ready and we're not, and we got to catch up fast, right? And when you look at the space and why segmentation is so important, there's many different types of people. There's people with different medical conditions, there's people with different recreational interests, there's hundreds if not thousands of different products out there, and there is so little real useful education on how to use all that, right? So one message to all will fall on a lot of deaf ears and not necessarily help that audience. So a lot of the solutions in the marketplace now, good or not, are for mass market, right? And that doesn't always work. You layer on top of that, stigma is still there. So for my audience, it's heavily there, right? And that's something we have to continue to break down. And the whole Schedule 1 classification doesn't really help much, but it's getting better, right? We all kind of see that. So what do you do about this? Well, the first thing you do is you take a data-driven approach. You've got to study your audience, and there are so many different ways to do this. And the benefit, as I contextualize it with our business of what we did here, is we spent a lot of time studying the audience to understand what they want, where they are, what they need. And we picked a segment, right? 50 and older, but that's not the segment. There's segments within that segment. So we drill even deeper down. And we do that because then we can create relevant content for them, relevant information for them. And that's not enough, right? Because then if you just put that content there, they may or may not know how to take that next step. So curating that journey from them. So we chose a path to bring in top doctors in the cannabis business, outside the cannabis business, experts in all different forms, all the brands and makers of product, all of the retailers who have the expertise and willingness to step up here. We're trying to bring everybody together to sort of understand together so we can serve the audience better. And what we sort of broke down is a few things. We looked at the segment, so our age group, right, ranges from 50 to 80. That's about 80 million people, of which 10 million of them are already cannabis users. 80% white, 60% female. So we know that, you know, mom or you know, wives are basically helping their husbands out a lot here by shopping the right way. So we want to educate them. And unbelievably, 92% of them have some form of medical condition or ailment where cannabis can help. And it is the second largest demographic out there, right? So there's a untapped audience here, right? And we also know that while they're hard to reach, 80% of them are online. 60% of them are on social, heavily driven by Facebook. 63% of them watch TV a lot, and 81% all have their smartphones. So the trick in marketing sometimes is reach, but it's activating, right? Like, how do we get them to do what we're asking them to do? And you put on top of that their income. This particular segment we chose, and one of the biggest reasons why, they have the most money to spend, right? And nobody is marketing to them out there, right? So they're in the highest demand, they got the most money to spend, and nobody's touching them, right? Well, I'm not the only one out there who has this idea, right? So we have to serve them better. We also looked at where they live in the country, right? So how we chose to roll out and where we're going to focus on our marketing first came down to a few things. I'm going to go here first. This came down, and this is really a key takeaway for you here. This came down to where they live. So we looked at states, we looked at cities and zip codes and counties. We looked at how close they were in this age group to a retailer, right? Nothing worse than to get them all excited and they can't find it. So that's where we're starting. We also looked at the household income, so we knew that we're marketing to people who want it and can afford it. And we really are looking at areas where are less political heavy, right? We want to find an easy path into them there. So really, the opportunity, right? It's hard to reach them, but we have to, right? There's a big opportunity for us and for them here to do that and to study them. That does not happen overnight, right? So this is a continuous process, and it's really about being data-driven. And there's many of us who have gone there already, and many of us who haven't. But I encourage everyone to think hard about that because we're going to continue to learn and how to educate them, and then how to take them through that journey to activate them, right? And then the partners that we activate them with have to also support, understand how to do that. Like a 65-year-old woman that I've studied does not want to walk into a dispensary and feel uncomfortable, right? So stores are going to have to change. The way retail is changing now. And they want to know that these products are safe. So that's why I'm very psyched, although all the partners I'm working with weren't, for the July 1st changes, because it makes it safer for a consumer. This age group wants to look at something and understand what it's made with and to try to do the research and to understand that it's safe for them, right? So even recreational use, you want to know it's safe. So the idea here is that one message to all doesn't work. Everybody has this same opportunity. And I'd love to encourage you to take this path as well, too. Thank you all very much.
All right, thanks, Greg. If we could have the tech panel, come on up. All right. Hello? Is this one hot?
Yes, just a second.
Hello? Hello? That on? Yes. All right, now you have to sit in order.
I didn't want to do the one that sits in the wrong spot.
Oh, I'm here.
I didn't know you were sitting. I thought you were standing.
No. Okay. So this actually follows. Is this on? Yes. Okay, perfect. So this follows right up to what Greg was talking about with segmentation, and we're going to dive right into the tech and data aspects. Quick background. So I was at Toyota for 10 years. And joined the cannabis space, worked for Mary Jane Media. It's we're a publisher founded by Snoop Dogg. We're also an agency, so we provide content strategy, influencer strategies for those brands that are looking to grow in the cannabis space. But we're also looking at mainstream audiences or mainstream brands that want to come in and test the waters with branding and advertising. But it is still a growing and maturing market. And so you're getting people that have been in the industry for decades that are now moving to a legalized market. So a lot of people don't have technical backgrounds. And so it's an interesting time in the marketplace because you're seeing a lot of established brands that have been established for years coming against a lot of new brands that are coming in the market that have the expertise and the technology backgrounds. And so want to really dive into the technical aspects and what ad technologies and what other technologies are being used in the space really by some of these more established brands and then new brands coming into the market, and just how much money do you need to spend to make an impact. Okay, so we have a variety of people with us today. So from the consumer side and then from the ad tech world and also B2B. So we have CJ Bowden, and so he's the CEO and co-founder of Greenspring, which is a video advertising and technology company that exclusively serves the cannabis industry, providing demand-side platform, data management platform, supply-side platform, and proprietary video players. He spent 20 years in the legacy media and digital industry. And then Grace Briscoe, she's the Vice President of Centro's Candidates and Causes Group. Her team delivers digital media expertise and technology that political and public affairs marketers need to drive action from key constituents. So more of the political aspects, which we'll be hearing more about. And then Rosa Zabel, yes, is SVP of Marketing from Ease Solutions. And I think it was mentioned you've seen their billboards all over, the bright blue billboards. My kids read them. It's great. But it's great. No, it starts a conversation. No, it's fantastic. Yeah, because they're 720 feet from school. And so, yeah.
Our legal team did map out every single school, public, housing, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So we're totally regulated and legal.
But Ease is a technology platform. And so...
Yeah, so correct. So Ease, if you are not aware, a lot of people know us as a delivery platform. We're actually a marketplace that connects consumers, dispensary retailers, and brands together. So think of it, a bit of it as kind of an eBay type of store. We provide the technical platform. We've got the e-commerce data, and also provide a lot of technical assistance ranging from sort of legal support for brands and dispensaries, as well as to some extent we're a marketing agency as well.
Can you give 30 seconds of your background?
Sure.
It's really interesting to see where people have come from and how they've gotten into the space.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting. I would have never dreamed this 20 years ago. I actually grew up in packaged goods, so I worked at a lot of the, up in the Bay Area, Clorox, Cliff Bar, Del Monte. Woohoo, yes. We all seem to migrate to each other on LinkedIn for some bizarre reason. But I also spent time in financial services. I was the GM of membership at ThinkLA for the NorCal, Nevada, Utah club. And then spent about 5 years in startups. Actually started off with an Internet of Things baby monitor data analytics company. Couldn't get any farther from this. Have worked in driver's ed and traffic school online for teens. Yeah, I know. And then here I am. But at the end of the day, if you're a marketer and that's what you love, it's the same. It's the same playbook. You just whip it out. You just have to know the rules and then know when to break them, which I have to break them all the time.
Grace?
Yeah. So I started out in small and mid-sized agencies working in a lot of tourism, B2B, some state government clients. I came to Centro 12 years ago, so digital was still a little new and exciting, and I'd been doing it for a little while. And fell in love with, I'm still learning new things every day, and that's what I love about being at Centro and being in the ad tech space particularly. It's constantly changing. You're constantly learning new stuff and constantly being challenged. I sort of fell into political and issue work in that I was kind of interested in it, and my little sister lived in DC, so I sort of volunteered to I'll see if we can scope out some clients in DC, and it went really well. And built out. We have a 30-person office in DC now that I started, and I've grown my team nationally. I've done more work in the cannabis space in legalization and regulation and policy work, though it's bled over into some consumer work, and definitely across Centro as an organization. We work with a number of cannabis clients. We've found it to be a really interesting and exciting space for us that we might be sort of uniquely suited to help pioneer in.
I started in local radio sales, and I think that in many ways, this market, I like to say that the cannabis market's got one foot in 2018, another foot in 1988, where magazines are a thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Billboards are non-traditional.
I feel like I'm going back, it's like Back to the Future, it's just a weird scenario, but a lot of these brands don't have agencies yet, so you haven't seen agencies encroach almost the way early digital was, where you had all these small shops. I was in San Francisco early digital time, and then they all got bought out. So I think that this has got some interesting parallels. So, and I think coming from that space, then going to digital, then being at Yahoo early, sort of post-crash. And by the way, it was very hard getting meetings. Toyota was hard to get a meeting with. All of them were hard.
Sorry.
And they, and many of them had been burned by the stock market. They didn't want to touch. The last thing they wanted to do was spend ad dollars in the very sector that they lost their personal wealth in. So it was an interesting process, and I've done many startups since then. And I've been in a highly regulated market in the kids advertising space. So I'm used to the sort of landmines, and I think this has all of it. So I do think there's a lot of education, and I do think that, I think it's going to be digital. I still think you'll see print, some other things, but it's great to have Centro in. I think the more players that are in the space and the more that these brands are talking to people like us and getting more comfortable with spending, it's a different world. It's not the way it was 5 years ago or 3 years ago. The future is going to be very different. I think it is going to form and sort of mature in a way that other industries have.
Okay, question for Grace. So how do you vet your clients? Because of the risk that you take, as discussed earlier, how do you know who to work with?
We have run some things by legal counsel, and I would think that's
everything.
That makes perfect sense. Yes, and we've definitely probably tapped into some of our legal counsel a little bit more on some of these things than we do typically. We might be paying for some extra billable hours, but it is worthwhile, and making sure you're operating in the legal states. You understand what the regulations in those states are and the restrictions. You understand what I actually feel like the challenges are more often the restrictions the inventory providers are putting up, that they're so much more stringent than the actual legal regulations that it's actually pretty hard to run afoul of legal regulations because even operating well within the bounds of legal, you're still getting rejected by inventory platforms. So that's been more of that challenge.
So that ties back to the next question is, how have you worked with the ad networks and to build the relationships? Because a lot of times, like even for me trying to work with ad networks, I get shut down by all of them. Nope, we're not putting anything on your platform. How have you gotten through that? Because I'm going to ask you the next question, the same question, because you're specifically ad tech for cannabis.
Yeah.
Where
Well,
Centro is,
if you think about it, is that it's still programmatic. If you think of the endemic world, your site, others, that's very difficult. It doesn't exist in the way that it does in the general market. I think the bigger opportunity, earlier to the previous speaker, was the non-endemic side of things and these different audience segments. So I think that you're going to see big tobacco, you're going to see the alcohol brand. They're all moving in, right? I mean, Molson, Heineken, the former CEO of Wrigley just invested in. I mean, it's all coming. But those non-endemics, being able to run there and pinpoint very specific inventory and sort of de-risk it, which we're looking into doing that, I think that's where it gets really interesting to reach those consumers that are trying cannabis for the first time. I think it's 7,000 people a day that are trying cannabis in the U.S. for the first time, and that's just leaf. I mean, it's incredible. And again, many of these dispensaries, most, like your audience segment, they're not going to want to walk into, for sure.
No, I think we feel like the audience opportunity is huge, is massive. And as we look at all of the 9 states that we have full legalization in now, and how many more are on the ballot in November, and how many more medical marijuana ballot measures we have going up, there are new markets opening up continuously, and that the biggest thing for us, I think, and it's interesting being in the ad technology space, that as ad technology, sometimes programmatically, it's a default no from the inventory sources, from the ad exchanges. Yeah. They have things set to as if you're just submitting it technologically, it's a default no. When you have a conversation with the people at the place, and this is what we've been doing a lot of.
It's the people hustle, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Like those one-to-one, like this is where it does go back to the old days, where like jumping back of it can't all be automated. You actually have to have conversations with the people and say, here are the advertisers we're working with. This is the creative that we're going to run. This is where we're going to run it. This is who we're targeting. And they go, oh yeah, no problem. We'll totally approve that. Meanwhile, everything would have been rejected. So it's setting up some of those site direct, publisher direct relationships, clearing things with exchanges individually, and setting up and private marketplace deals has been a lot of where we're seeing opportunity.
So, and Rosa, so your platform is actually an advertising platform in itself, because you actually distribute cannabis or work with retail outlets.
So we work with regulated dispensaries, and they basically are the fuel. So we're essentially a marketplace. We do customer acquisition, retention. We send the orders to dispensaries. All the drivers, which by the way, they're W-2, not 1099. Those drivers then go to your home and deliver. And those are employees of the dispensaries that we work with. They're employees of the dispensary. We are the marketplace, the platform, the shell. So it's actually a pretty big distinction that we like to make because, I mean, in some ways, sort of tech, non-tech, I mean, we're really like coaches and counselors to the brands, coaches and counselors to the dispensaries. Speaking of legal, I have to tell you, our lawyers are like my best friends. I talk to them all the time. We never run advertising without giving them a peek. We never start a new channel when we're experimenting with new vehicles for advertising without their approval. We don't hit a new zip code when we've opened up new territory without having them do the thumbs up. We can advertise, and often they tell us pause. It's like you cannot run marketing without your legal counsel. I wish we were in the same floor. We're not. We're in different buildings. But, we're constantly working together because we want to stay out of trouble. The reality is that we are large and have scale now, and there's a bullseye. Like, we are always being watched. So of all the companies in this space, we can't, you can't skirt the law. We take great pride in working. We only work with compliant brands, compliant dispensaries. I mean, it's all by the book. So our attorneys clearly are a key piece of helping us stay in that space.
So how do you, or what types of technologies do you use in order to market to your consumer base?
Yeah, so I think, sort of the best thing, the treasure trove for ease is that we sit on all this data. So any of you who are from some of the, sort of larger established industries, how many of you have used Nielsen? IRI. Imagine a world where there is no Nielsen, there is no IRI. We've got the data, and so it gives us a huge advantage. We provide that data to our brands, so it gives them a competitive advantage. So something as simple as CRM segmentation. You can't market one size fits all. We have the ability to be able to cherry pick out specific segments of customers, market the right message at the right time to the right person. All the best practices that you would want to do. In some cases, we are, constantly testing our landing pages, and maybe you're in this zip code, you're going to get a certain assortment of products available in your community, but the person in, clear across the state's not they're seeing a different set of products. So we're really able to customize and make sure that we're optimizing the category and the assortment, so that every time you pop onto our website, you're seeing stuff that you really want to buy.
So what other types of technologies like ad tech or whether it's location-based, what other services are you seeing out there in the cannabis space that people are using or at least testing? Because we all know you can't advertise on Facebook and Google, and so how do you get around that? What other ways?
That's what's so exciting about it.
Yeah. It is.
I mean, that's the reason why we're here is that it's in a big market. It's like a big niche. That's what oxymoron is that they're not here. They will be here when it's federally legal. But I think even most bigger companies, certainly public, they're not going to touch it. As long as it's federally illegal. No general counsel is going to let you come in here. And so, that creates that sort of asymmetric sort of opportunity, certainly for us. But yeah, I think it's still very new. I mean, again, most of these brands don't have agencies. That whole system doesn't even exist yet. And that's why the magazines you're seeing them pop up all the time. And they're doing it with very little resources just because they can physically see, hey, I'm in here. And that's all that it is. But I also think some of the regulations are slowing it down as well. I mean, just everyone catching up, right, with the packaging is a big deal too.
So,
I was going to say, you mentioned hyperlocal, which is the space that we've actually been using quite a bit as like a really good, but yeah, as a great base layer for reaching folks, and especially since full legalization, like of geofencing dispensaries and looking at folks that visit dispensaries on a regular basis, and that's an easy way to identify your core market.
Is that legal?
It is,
okay.
As long as you've gotten the exchange approval, which you have to have a conversation with an actual person to do, and that's the trick, because nobody does that anymore. Yeah,
no, and it's true, and we do a lot of hybrids. So I'm sure many of you have seen billboards. Frankly, I hadn't done billboards in quite a while, and it's really interesting. I'll just share a story in our office. One of our folks on our product team came up to me and was just like, Rosa, like, what's going on? There's like all this non-traditional marketing in cannabis. And, the light bulb went off for me, like, wow, he grew up in the digital age. Or like non-traditional. Gosh, I've been missing radio, TV, print for a really long time. So this is really fun that what was old, is new again. But we do hybrid combinations. We buy billboards, but we also geofence them. We do mobile advertising. We're definitely trying to bring, best of the modern technology with some of the old-fashioned technology. But yeah, advertising is very limited. Billboards have been our most effective vehicle, and actually it's a shrinking inventory, and it's really tight. So, you got to make your dollars work really, really hard.
So if you're a brand coming into the industry, you're a young brand, don't have a ton of budget, how much do you need to spend in order to have an impact, and where the hell do you spend it?
It depends on the market,
And
right?
how do you survive as an ad tech platform when there's no one that's got huge budgets?
Raising capital.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, it will take some time, but it's coming, right? So the money's being spent. It isn't going to be able to sustain, dozens of companies the way you would see, or hundreds in the general market, but that creates the opportunity. And I also think not only do you have some of these challenges, but it's an inefficient market. But that's, those challenges that sets up the opportunity. If it were easy, everyone would be here, right? But there's not many.
And I would say, if you're a small brand and you don't have deep marketing dollars, you come to a place like Ease. Because you come on our site, you get instant access to a statewide population of registered users on our platform. We as a marketing team, I'm starting to introduce a bit of shopper marketing discipline. And we just, we help. We want to understand what the brand story is, how to make your brand shine. Our editor-in-chief will write a story about your brand, and the founders, everybody wants to know what they're consuming. So, this is a place to get, basically, it comes with a bundle, right? You're on our platform, we want you to be successful. We're going to do whatever it takes from a marketing perspective to make sure your brand stands out.
So you mentioned editor-in-chief. And so you're seeing a lot of that because you need organic traffic. And you're seeing a lot of brands that are focused on quality articles and editorial videos, and I think that's the way to go. Without Facebook or Google, you need to be organic.
It's really true. It's interesting. I don't know how many experiences experiences you guys have had, but you usually have that tension between I want to go do I want to speed up my traffic. I got to go spend money on Facebook or on AdWords, versus doing it slow burn quality through your SEO, through your content, etc. There's always this tension. In cannabis, there's none. Because you have there's nothing to buy in a traditional sense. So your SEO is super critical. I'd also say one of the key things is in a market like this, education is really key. So SEO aside, you want to educate people what they're consuming. It's like top 10 products, or how to cautiously consume an edible. You hear lots of horror stories. What's in what's in the box, right? So. Content marketing is a very key lever in this industry, both from an SEO perspective and just, doing the right thing for the customer. So
how do you find your cannabis, the brands that you're working with?
A lot of them are in the magazines. Honestly, that is, there's some great ones out there. I think Cannabis Now is a phenomenal one. High Times, obviously. They're out there. And quite frankly, it's the mix of, if you're going to be in print, certainly doing digital and more video. We bought the technology assets that came out of a Y Combinator company, so I didn't create it. It's great assets that have run lots of campaigns. And I think the combination of video, sight, sound, and motion with print, it's not one or the other, it's both. So I think it's some of these basic sort of media mix disciplines that I just don't think many of those on the brand side, they probably didn't come from that side of things. So I think it's a nice educational side of things, but it's small still, and I like that intimate, small feeling of it. It's going to change, obviously, in the next few years. It's going to be quite different, but that's sort of what we're leading with, is that media mix.
Grace?
Well, I think, initially, I think our first couple of cannabis clients found us. We didn't necessarily seek it out, but I think they, after maybe getting told no by a few other ad technology companies, bless their hearts, they kept at it, and they got to us, and we said, yeah, why not? We'll take a whack at that, and then actually found it a really interesting space and realized that there was some headway we could make, and then started to grow it from there. Once you realize you're able, and there is something to buy. I will argue that, but there is actually something to buy in the digital space. There's plenty of somethings. but it's hard to find. And so having a partner that can help you find it and uncover it is where we're seeing that there's a lot of value we can provide, and it's grown, it's taken off a bit from there.
So what are the roles of agencies then? So a lot of people here may be interested in.
I think some of the bigger agencies, certainly the big holding companies, I think they're going to be hesitant because they're public companies. They have a lot to risk, right? So they're going to be just as cautious. But I would imagine they're all looking at this because these are customers they don't have. So I would imagine they're going to wait for businesses to develop, right? And they're going to figure out how they could buy someone and then sell them lots of products and services. But again, that's what reminds me of early online, where it's too small right now, I think, still, for them to really wade in with the risk to reward. But I think that will change. But agencies they're not dominant yet.
And there's an opportunity for small agencies, I think, for small and mid-sized,
specialize in it, right.
For boutique firms,
Yep.
Which I think we're starting to see a couple crop up in the space, and specialize in that. And I think that I come from the agency side, as I think most.
We
of
want
us
it.
do.
It'll make it easier.
Yeah, there is a role still for agencies in brand strategy and message strategy and media, and understanding the whole scope of things. Agencies can be very valuable. So
because
I think there'll be some boutique firms that really own this space and take it and run with it.
Because I think to come in and actually help them with a brand strategy, what's their identity, what's that narrative, and help them communicate that through other media. So you don't want them to have some missteps and just spend to spend. You want them to do it in a disciplined, intelligent way. Because they're doing that, and they know what the cost to acquire a consumer, and the margins are there. They're going to be around. You don't want them going out of business, right? So I think agencies are going to have a really critical role to play.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And what I'm finding is a lot of agencies, like old agencies of record of mine, they have cannabis practices. It's not on their website. You just have to chat with them. And then all of a sudden it's like, why didn't you tell me you were building a cannabis practice? So they're there, just a lot of word of mouth.
Yep. And we'll be hearing from someone from one of the agencies that is more mainstream, that has taken on some cannabis clients or developed cannabis clients. Okay, final thoughts. Where's the future of cannabis tech? I'm just going to say next year. I mean, this is rapid. So what's going to be the big thing? And open up to anybody.
I don't know what the big thing is, but we're looking at it not only just from the U.S. I think it would be a mistake to think of it just, even though we're sitting here in California, obviously it's huge in California. Right now it's L.A. and Canada, right? I mean, Canada's the leader. But I think this is going to be a global industry, because you're not just talking about you're looking at hemp, CBD, and THC. I mean, the number of products, the number of age segments, the use cases is going to be incredible. So I think that something we're looking at is thinking much more of a global perspective than just a U.S. or certainly a California perspective.
And I have heard that, been doing a lot of work in Canada, that Facebook and Google, if anyone correct me if I'm wrong, they may be opening it up once legalization hits. So in 1017. Perfect. And so you'll be able to advertise with Facebook and Google, which is going to be huge for them.
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, really, when you think about the future, it's bringing all the basics back that perhaps have not been used regularly in the industry. But for example, database marketing, I mean, I've talked to 3 different companies, entrepreneurs, trying to build like what Experian and Axiom and all these companies do for you in the credit card industry. For example, give me your database of customers and let me overlay all of that rich, deep insight to assist with segments, and you get microsegments and so on. So I think it's really some of the classical things that are now, like, people are finding a way to do it in cannabis. So I'm really curious to see where innovation takes us in terms of like 2019, because I'm finding that there's just a lot of creativity, and some of the bigger players are starting to find a way to get into the industry.
I feel like creativity is going to be king, and that's what we've seen, is like that sort of creative ways of figuring out how to problem solve and have the conversations with the right people to get things done. And I think that's what it seems to be coming down to for us, is those conversations, and then you can get the clearance you need. Keep it growing. That was a pun that I didn't actually intend.
All right, well, thank you for joining us tonight, and hopefully everyone got some more insight into the cannabis tech. And now And we're going on to our final panel. But thank you very much.
Thank you, CJ, Grace, and Rosa, and Jim. One of the things I love about ThinkLA is the power of networking. So hopefully, depending on what side of the fence you're on, you can meet some of the people after the program concludes and make some inroads for whatever it is that you want to talk about. Really good discussion. So the next and concluding panel, we're going to explore building some recreational cannabis with Anna Duckworth. Anna, you guys coming up? Kimberly Dillon. Hi. Kyle Johnston. And our moderator is Yoni Meyer. So, sorry. Yeah, you guys have to sit in the, yeah, there you go. Musical chairs. Perfect. So I'm turning it over to Yoni.
Excellent. How are you guys doing today? So first and foremost, just to kind of introduce myself, my name is Yoni Meyer. I'm a partner. Oh, these don't turn on. Hello. There you go. All right. So my name is Yoni Meyer. I'm a partner at Casa Verde Capital, where we manage a $45 million venture capital fund specifically focused on the cannabis space. I'd like to thank the ThinkLA team for hosting this event and specifically this panel on building a cannabis brand. So I'm sure you guys are kind of aware that we're in a pretty exciting time these days. Not only are brands being developed, but categories in and of themselves are being created. So to see this creation of new consumer staples, you'd have to go back probably 50 to 100 years to kind of watch their development. So in that vein, with kind of seemingly limitless possibilities, we at Casa Verde think that kind of cannabis is a once-in-a-lifetime investment opportunity. So in that vein, I'd like to actually introduce some of the guys who are here to talk about kind of what they're doing and how they're working either with agencies or as brands or vice versa. So first and foremost, Anna Duckworth. She's the co-founder and editor-in-chief at Miss Grass, which is an elevated content and e-commerce platform for women in cannabis. Prior to Miss Grass, she was the head of content at Dosist.
Hi, guys.
Next, we have Kimberly Dillon, who's a VP of marketing at Papa & Barkley, which is a premium cannabis brand and wellness brand with products ranging from topicals to capsules. Kimberly has extensive marketing experience in the CPG space, working at Clorox and P&G.
CMO now, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you. Thank you, Jim. And then finally, let's open it up to Kyle Johnson, who's the founder and president at GigaSavvy, which is an award-winning 10-year-old creative agency that was one of the first to make the leap into cannabis. So GigaSavvy is currently the agency for Orchid Essentials, which is one of the fastest-growing vape brands in the space. And interestingly enough, they are actually planning to go public in Canada within, I think, the next month or two.
That's correct.
So starting off with Kyle, you know, more and more agencies and marketing advertising professionals are trying to get into this industry. So we saw this with, I'm sure all of you guys are familiar with Anomaly. Anomaly is the agency that was behind Dosist as well as Double Barrel. And similarly, we're seeing that with GigaSavvy in terms of Orchid Essentials. So just to kind of start things off, how do you find yourself working with cash-strapped brands? Because, you know, as we've been a recurring theme here is these brands need help, but at the same time, they don't have any money to be putting towards marketing.
Yeah, it was a very unconventional, start when we first joined forces with Orchid. I'll get to that story, I think, at some point, or maybe now's a good time. But so it wasn't traditional how it began, but it definitely became more prevalent as things went, even though we had a, like I mentioned, an unconventional relationship, but go figure, they do actually pay us money on a monthly basis. But that money amount is small, and you see what it's like when you know what's going on in the background because of our relationship with them. And so we started to kind of see the ins and outs the rapid change that's happening every single day. The founders were actually supposed to be here tonight, but they got pulled into a last-minute meeting for manufacturing purposes. As we know, California is going through a lot of changes in that space currently. So these things happen, and so our partnership really was housed in being there on an ongoing basis, riding the tide of the unknown, which no matter how ingrained you are in the space, that change is imminent until this thing really solidifies. So that partnership really became solidified on that piece, was that trust, that ongoing relationship, that brand startup, which we really developed the brand from the ground up. We did do strategy first because, heck, there wasn't anything else to do. We're so compelled these days to go straight into tactics, and we couldn't do that with no media opportunity. So, hey, let's actually take time and develop this brand, develop this strategy, talk about audience like we heard earlier today, and when we're ready to go to market, we'll be ahead of the game. And that was really how we kind of started things out with them. And it's been over a year now. As he mentioned, the company's going public in September up on the Canadian market. So it's a really exciting time. We're just waiting in the wing to do something big when we're able to. And we feel like we've got a good basis underneath us at the moment.
Thank you. So Kimberly, how do you at Papa and Barkley engage with various agencies, and especially given that I'm sure a lot of these guys are new to the space, and I can't tell you frankly how many decks and logos I've seen even from mainstream agencies where they kind of just throw pot leaves in because they think that's what people want. But I think as we go mainstream, but these people in theory don't have experience with cannabis the way that some of the people on stage do, how do you think about vetting them and kind of engaging some of these guys?
It's interesting because I'm thinking about a month ago, we want to do our first media campaign. We actually want to spend some money, little amounts of money, so small. And we went to 2 agencies, and one guy, he made eye contact with me for like 3 minutes. He was like, no, and left. And I was like, okay. And then the second one, we did go forth and we talked, etc. And big name agency, and then they sent their proposal on like a Word. It was like a Google Doc, like with no one's name on it. Like it was like someone's side project that they were going to funnel the money. So it hasn't gone particularly well. We do work with some cannabis-focused agencies that have helped us piecemeal. So for our packaging, we worked with a local cannabis agency, and that was great. We share a publicist on brand, so that's great. So like we do invest in PR because that is something that we can access. We do have an SEO agency for content. We also partnered with a content agency. So we surprisingly did go with very small grassroots agencies, very local agencies to start to piecemeal our practice. It's interesting to have like 4 or 5 different tiny agencies to coordinate. It's a cluster. It's a cluster, so that's what we're doing right now.
Fair enough. I think that seems pretty kind of along the lines of many other brands, frankly.
And no matter how you cut it, it's an investment, right? I mean, we chose to make that investment with that particular brand, and we obviously hope it pays off at some point. So there's no question that regardless of what you're into at this stage, it isn't a traditional relationship, no question.
So Anna, how do you guys work with agencies, if at all? And if not, or in addition, do you find potential brands coming to you and seeing how you might be taking on kind of a quasi-agency role in supporting their, development or so forth?
Yeah, so actually both. So we are currently sort of about to engage with 2 shops, neither of which are from the cannabis space or have ever worked with cannabis clients, which is a really fun opportunity for us in the cannabis space because there are a lot of shops out there that are really hungry to have a cannabis brand in the portfolio, and so they're willing to sort of shave off cost for startup, which is really wonderful. So, I never have gone after, in the whole RFP process, we did not go after cannabis agencies specifically. In fact, the opposite. We wanted to go after agencies that just have like a really impressive portfolio, that they have brands that we identify with, brands where they have sort of access, targeted, and built strategy and developed whole identity systems that actually speak to the audience that Miss Grass is trying to speak to. So that's kind of our approach with agency. And then as far as us operating as sort of a quasi-agency, that too. Miss Grass launched in January. And what we found, because we are developing content, and much like that Three Wells model, we are, trying to basically create a really elevated educational and lifestyle content offering for this modern woman consumer. And so, I think what we found is, as you have found, that there is really very little, if anything, out there to speak to this consumer. And so we're seeing, our friends, our mothers, our grandmothers, our friends' friends, who are coming to us sort of on the side being like, listen, I'm interested in cannabis, but I really have I have no idea where to begin. And so we are, really starting to see the value in that content. And I think that brands are starting to approach us. So we have brands that are coming to us from Canada, which is really cool. I'm Canadian, so I have a little line in there. Are you? Nice. Yeah, so that's really cool, but totally. So we have a lot of of U.S. brands also approaching us. But this is a very new part of our business that we're starting to explore.
Great. So I heard there were elements of storytelling in there in terms of kind of targeting this audience. So Kimberly, how does storytelling fit into kind of the origin story for Papa and Barkley, or if not the origin story, just how you're marketing the brand?
It's the basis of everything we do. It's the one thing that we have, because there is basically on the hemp and the CBD side, there's a lot of snake oil businesses because it's hot money. And then there's also a lot of businesses that go kind of over tech, or they are trying to apply what happens in general market. We went to the approach of, it's our founder. Papa is our founder's dad, and Barkley is our founder's dog. Those are real people, and it's a real story. And everyone that works at our company, it's really, truly, we're all caregivers. I came into cannabis because I just tend to be plants over pills. Everyone in our company kind of is in that same vein. So for us, we're telling our stories as individuals, which collectively mirrors with the origin story. And it really connects with our consumer because it is a story. Anyone who's willing to do something illegal has a motivation to do so. And so there's a story there. And so we want to help them tell that story. And we sort of tell that story first. And then through our products, it's amazing because I love listening to people's stories. But man, the amount of stories that we get on Instagram, on my personal Instagram, it has got to be 60 or 70 stories a day. And it's very personal. And I used to man our 800 line. I mean, I would just take laps with people because they want to share their story. And so having an authentic story and being vulnerable and saying, this is what we stand for and this is what we commit for, then we allow space for our customers to do that with us. So, I mean, it's the most powerful thing that we have.
So Anna, for storytelling, do you mind giving just a tiny background of kind of the origin story for Miss Grass?
Yeah, so Miss Grass it actually the seed was planted over a decade ago with my business partner, Kate Miller. She was at USC. She was an avid cannabis consumer and actually worked at a dispensary downtown. And with all of her friends, she was consuming cannabis, and what she was seeing at the dispensary was nothing at all that ever spoke to her and her friends. And so she bought the URL back then. She's that person who buys URLs. So she did that. She didn't know what she was going to do with it. So it was a decade later that she came back to it. And so that was this past year. Meanwhile, I was working at Dosist as the head of content, which was an incredible opportunity and a great foray into cannabis, obviously. And it forced me to be incredibly bookish about weed. And so I had been I had never intellectualized my cannabis experience. I would smoke weed and move on, and sometimes it would be a good experience and sometimes it would be a bad experience. But when I joined the team at Dosist, I ordered every book on cannabis and didn't speak to anybody for months as I sort of educated myself on this other side of this plant that I had been interacting with. And then it was sort of my job to develop the curriculum and the content around education for that brand. And what I learned at Dosist is that Dosist is a brand that's extremely accessible. They're the first brand that came out and decided that they were going to access that consumer that had never been spoken to before. With that, Dosist is also not targeting a very specific
user beyond sort of the psychographics of you've never used weed before. And so what I became really obsessed with, and what I think my strength was in speaking to my girlfriends, being that sort of friend to women who were just like me. And so that was kind of like where I started to get really, really excited. And I started to explore that a little bit with Dosis, but it was always like, let's be a little bit more like broad reach in our approach. So that's kind of when I started thinking about how was I going to spin off and start my own project that was going to speak to this consumer. And meanwhile, Kate was sort of like, I'm ready to do Miss Grass. So we joined forces.
Great.
Yeah.
So, Kyle, where do you sit in terms of kind of, perhaps obviously it's not exactly apples to apples because it's a vape brand versus kind of health and wellness and a female-oriented story. But
vape, doesn't that word sound like dirty just alone? Yeah.
A little. So be it from the origin story or just generally, like how are you engaging your kind of consumer, your target audience?
Yeah, I mean, Orchid from the start targeted people similarly, right? It was definitely not targeting the stoners. Some of the vape brands which come to mind, Brass Knuckles and some of these other companies, and sorry if there's any Brass Knuckles people here, but, it's a brand that speaks in a certain way, right? Orchid was a flower, it was a plant, it was supposed to be very sort of agnostic. It was not designed to evoke any immediate emotion except maybe calm and safety and friendly, and some of these words that I think, again, like, we've heard a few times, weren't being used to describe, the products in the space. They were targeting stoners per se. So, when we first, did our big splash, marketing effort up in Oregon, which was, again, go figure, a series of billboards. I think at one time we had 50 billboards or something up in Oregon. And the message was the highest standards in cannabis. This was also the timing in which everybody was questioning, the quality of products, the pesticides or even the cyanide, as you've heard recently with some of these current brands. So, people wanted to feel calm and, trusted as far as, which products that they were going to try for this first time. So it was a huge effort. One of the stories I've told is, Corey, who's the CEO of Orchid, sends me a text message, video text, right, of him out front of a dispensary in Oregon. And he first looks into the camera and says, pretty sure these guys are going to know who we are. And then he pans the camera up and you see the billboards literally sitting on top of the dispensary that they were going in. And it was a very grassroots, sort of boots on the ground effort. When we first started out, it was billboards and sales and, taking care of the bud tenders and doing, old school tactics that you would do in shopper marketing, making sure the products always look the best, putting extra time into packaging, things that, again, I think people forgot in the digital era. So we did have to kind of go back to square one.
Great. So, Kimberly, at Papa & Barkley, you guys have a pretty extensive product line. What's the thought process that goes into in terms of what's next in that kind of roadmap, and how are you choosing what gets actually onto the shelf?
So we actually do have customer segmentation, and we have our chronic pain manager, that's what we call our senior. We have our green juice mommy, and then we have our weekend warrior. So we know who our archetypes are, and they're on the wall, and everyone knows. And so we're always speaking about, like, what does she want or what does he want? So there's part of thinking about our consumer, too. We do focus groups. So we do focus groups monthly. We do a lot of surveys. You just have to be hands-on. I had to find the data. We actually use BDS, and we also use Headset to square what we're seeing, to actually see what's the category trends. And then we're doing research in Israel. So we have a hospital that we're working with in Herzliya, in which we're looking specifically at chronic pain. We're looking on is it psoriasis? I think it's psoriasis that we're looking at. So we're looking at a number of conditions. So it's sort of a trifecta of, like, what does our consumer want? What are we hearing from our actual consumers? What is the category sort of? And so for those who don't know, BDS and Headset are kind of like the Nielsen's or the IRI data that's in the industry. So what's being sold, and I look a lot to Colorado and to Oregon because their markets have happened earlier. And then we square with what the researcher's coming out with. And then we fight about what we produce all of our products. So that is a huge process, because as hard as it is to market, it's hard to make it and distribute it and to grow it. And so we're all going through these changes through the whole supply chain. So it is a fight about what's the easiest product we can make, actually. So there's a lot of different variables that go into it, but we actually do a lot of research.
Cool. So keeping on that theme, Anna, for Miss Grass and obviously Miss Grass is a content, but there's also an e-commerce play as well. But it's not branded products; it's more so accessories and other things. So, granted, not apples to apples, but how are you thinking about what gets onto your e-commerce platform?
So, I mean, it's a curated marketplace. So basically what we do and the way that we figure it out is what are the products out there that sort of meet the standards of Miss Grass. So we also do sort of little focus groups to see what products are popular with this demographic or psychographic, and then decide actually with our Miss Grass team, what are the products that sort of meet our standards. And so our standards are design with function, and sort of aesthetic and quality. And so what products out there hit those targets? And I mean, like you said, there are a lot of snake oil salesmen. There are a lot of products out there that are absolute shit. And there are just a lot of products out there, period. So it's our job to sort of go out there, distill it, and sort of create that roadmap so that that consumer who doesn't know what the fuck is going on can navigate the space.
Kyle, so again, you're a little bit of an outlier in terms of kind of Orchid and being singular vape.
Sort of. They've got other products as well. Yep.
Okay, so maybe can you tell us a little about those other products and how you're going about what that roadmap is like?
For starters, they're entirely different, right? They have CBD gel caps, which are manufactured a particular way, but the CBD market, is a little bit more open in some areas, a little bit more accessible. So the strategy is entirely different, really, on the CBD side. It's also going to be e-commerce, very soon, pending weeks. If anybody here has built an e-commerce site, you know what that last phase is like. It's painful, especially now. I mean, even simple things that were previously basic, merchant services and payment processing and things like that, right? You get everybody jumping in the ring saying, oh yeah, we can handle CBD or THC or whatever other acronym. Yeah, we got it, no worries. And then they come back after you fill out the application and tell you, oh, actually we need to wait another few more weeks. And so that's pretty much the phase we're in. I think we've submitted probably 10 different merchant services applications in the last 10 days. And, lots of people saying they can do it. So we'll see. So CBD is a different space. E-commerce is a different space. Obviously, we talked a little bit in the THC and the vape space. And it has been really that, right? The strategy has been what we kind of discussed. It's been more boots on the ground, more brand strategy, and really thinking about really hard. I think somebody earlier said word of mouth, right? The forgotten, most powerful thing in marketing, right? If you can achieve good word of mouth marketing, you've made it, right? You don't need to advertise. You don't need to spend dollars. And when competition is so low as it currently is, you could argue that there's a lot of players and a lot of brands, but in reality, competition's low from a traditional marketing standpoint. You have an opportunity to achieve word of mouth. And guess what? You have to create a great product. Go figure. There's a lot of bad products that just are great advertisers and good marketers that are also successful. But we're in the age of with cannabis where the product has to be great. The message has got to be simple and pure and consistent. And that's really been it. I mean, I can't tell you any more complexity around the strategy because opportunities are limited. So again, focus on the basics because for once in a lifetime you have the opportunity to do so.
I would like to add that, if I may. One thing I should mention about the cannabis industry that might not be incredibly obvious is that it's really small, and this is a passionate group of people, especially when you're talking about on the farmer side, because these are people who wanted to be off the grid. Like, they did not necessarily want this game. And so everyone talks. And it's very passionate. And I mean, sometimes I'm like, why are you advertising that magazine? They don't support, like, whatever it was. So, like, social justice issues, inclusion issues, women's issues, like, you're playing lots of games. Like, which rep did you support? The policies, the water climate issues in this particular city. Like, it is a very, very politically aware and very talkative group of people who are very passionate and talk to each other about everything. And an Instagram DM will go so far, and will destroy brands. I'm not sure if you've seen what happened with Treatwell, but things can go down quick, and it can happen in weeks. So I just want to say that it is a very communicative group from brands, manufacturers, and cultivators. We know each other. We all talk to each other. And I mean, these are some passionate
especially
people.
The ones that are doing it above the line, like we talked about, right? There's a lot of shady workings going, and the brands that are doing it right are the first to call out the people that are doing it wrong, right? And which is a good thing. That's what this industry needs. But it's been really funny and interesting to see this stuff go down because it's been a while to see the level of passion that you're talking about at an early stage of an industry.
So Kyle, you mentioned some CBD products. Are you guys currently doing or planning to do any kind of direct-to-consumer?
Yeah, that would be the e-commerce site. So, we're looking at tactics as, simple as growing our email list and building, ways to drive traffic. So content has been a big topic, as we heard. SEO has been a big topic. So these are all plays that I think, are going to generate that direct-to-consumer piece. E-commerce is wide open for CBD. It's just a matter of finding that audience at this particular time and cultivating them, again, in that way that I think we've all kind of forgotten because of all these fun digital tools we've got in front of us.
And Kimberly, how about you guys?
Ditto to what he just said.
Okay. And what are you guys concerned about, or maybe as day by day this opens up in terms of kind of certain states having CBD regulations or not, and kind of are you playing a game of we're shipping to XYZ states or we're doing to all 50? How does that work?
Well, we actually had a huge argument, so that's funny, today for about 2.5 hours and I think the net of it is that there's going to be certain states we're not going to be shipping to, and then there's some of us who want to ship to all states. It is a fight and it's a choice. I mean, in California, the BCC just put out their regulations as it relates to hemp. There's some issues in Michigan. Everything is incredibly local, so you have to think on the state level, but I also have to think on the city level. So not just talking about CBD, but when I talk about events, can I do it in Santa Rosa? Can I do it in San Bernardino? Can I do it in San Diego? Is there consumption in San Diego? Oh, I can do that in San Francisco, but I can't do that in Eureka. Do I need special packaging in Eureka? But I don't have that packaging in San Diego. Like, it's a nightmare. So, like, there's a lot of complexity, so I just want to share that. Like, it's not just when people are pitching me, I'm like, I can do all these things for you. I'm like, I'm literally thinking about 18 markets in the state of California about what I can do if I can get you the right packaging. Can I do? And I'm the lawyer, because all the lawyers are like, no. So, when you're pitching someone, just know that, like, I'm thinking, like, what are the smallest, easiest things you can do for me?
Be prepared to lose and screw up, right? Because, I remember one time we were finishing our last round of packaging, this is a while back, and somebody didn't proofread a word, right? And there was a small little misspelling. It went to print. Everybody's pissed. And then all of a sudden, we're also relieved at the same time because we realized that something else on the packaging just failed a new regulation that just passed yesterday. So we had to trash the packaging anyway. So, luckily the person who I still to this day don't know who did it, how it happened, it doesn't matter, right? Because we still had to pull it back. And there's been multiple rounds of that where you just, you think you know it all, and then the next day you don't, and you just kind of ride with it.
Great. Shifting gears slightly, Anna, from a digital marketing point of view, that's kind of all you guys, or maybe in the future might be doing other things, but that's all you guys do right now. What has been the most effective tool or the most effective kind of campaign that you've seen in the short existence of Miss Grass?
So, people have talked about this already tonight. Obviously, spends on social are more or less out of the question. We were really brazen about that in the beginning, and had our Facebook account shut down. So, and we knew better too. It was just like we wanted to see what would happen, basically. And it happened, and it's more than a slap on the wrist. We've managed to get it turned back on, so I want to share that story with you to inspire you, because you can get it turned back on. Listen, we haven't done any campaigns because we're not allowed. But our big sort of angles around customer acquisition and growing audience and building community are around newsletter growth. Newsletter is our biggest focus. It's a hyper engaged audience. Our open rate right now is like almost at 40%, and industry average is like, what is it, like 3%? It's really low. So, but I don't think this is a special case with Miss Grass. I think it's cannabis. And so that is something that I would really emphasize. And the other things that we're sort of doubling down on are earned media. We've had incredible luck with that. The wind has very much been at our back, and we're incredibly grateful for that.
Has it been luck, or have you guys been kind of actually proactively going after it?
We've been actively going after it, and we have a wonderful publicist who was with us at Dosist and came to Miss Grass, and we adore her. And that is one place where I think it is really important to get somebody who knows how to talk about weed, because it's like getting a writer to write about surfing when they've never gone surfing. Like, it is just absolute Kooksville otherwise. And so she's fabulous, and she has all the networks and the relationships, and she's also a Miss Grass. So she can go out there and just tell the story. And like Kimberly's story with Papa and Barkley, Miss Grass's story is also totally true with Kate and I. And so earned media, SEO is another one, but SEO is a super long game. Social, so all organic, obviously, but Instagram is an incredible driver for our e-commerce and also just traffic to our .com around content. Social, earned media, newsletter, and what's the other one? Come back to me.
Okay. And we'll close with just kind of a similar question.
SEO.
Thank you. To you guys, what has been kind of the most successful marketing campaign, be it digital or not, that you guys have run, and kind of what has been the takeaway as to why that's worked so well?
I would say, so on the digital side, we've actually have gotten some approvals. We do not, because what you can't do is you can't sell the flower, but you can educate people about products. So it won't be so straightforward of like, here's our products, but we've gotten a lot of our campaigns through because we were just educating seniors, learn about CBD.
But is it coming from Papa and Barkley? Like papaandbarkley.com? A story?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Or sometimes we put it on a third party.
Ooh. There are lots of tricks.
Yes.
And
then on the outside, which is just the heartstrings, is that actually we care so much about seniors. So we actually bus seniors to the dispensary monthly, and these seniors are insane. There's like 2 dudes and like a bunch of women, and the men are having lots of fun. So we do that up and down the state, and we actually take, if we cannot not ship, that's the wrong word. Shuttle them to the seniors, to the dispensary. We'll take the dispensary to the retirement home. So we've gone to a Leisure World, was an amazing experience. We've gone to a number of retirement communities, and we just educate them there, and then we partner with like a delivery partner so that they can actually fulfill, and those have been really successful. That helped with earned media. It's heartstrings. We actually have an old man in our packaging, so that also makes sense. And seniors have the most money to spend in this industry, so that has been our most successful campaign, is actually taking the dispensary to the consumer, or taking the consumer to the dispensary.
We don't track any seniors. I commend you for that.
Not yet.
We would like to. Maybe you can hook me up with your source. But I mean, honestly, the campaign story I already kind of told, right? I mean, we did a lot of billboards. We created a best-in-class website. We focused a lot on the brand. Yes, we do a lot of Instagram stories. We're very loyal to our customer base. I mean, it goes back again. It goes beyond marketing, right? In this case, it's sales. It's good old-fashioned relationship building. Someone mentioned, the unique people in our space, right? And the farmers are definitely one of them. When we were first sourcing, the core material to all the products that we all make here, right? Talking to some of these farmers and having a team of people on our side that actually had relationships, and that probably meant they sold bags of weed illegally for many years. But they're gotten to a point now where they've built relationships with these guys. These guys don't want to talk to the slick back hair guy who's got $10 million to offer, because Farmer Joe's got $3 million buried in his front yard, and he just wants a good relationship, and he wants a trusted relationship, and that's what this industry was kind of built on as it started to regulate itself. I mean, I think we were smart in a way to focus in states like Oregon, for example, where it is more regulated. The game you can play and what you can't. I mean, to an extent, obviously, you've heard lots of stories to the contrary of that, but that's really been it. We've always stayed above board. We've always stayed ahead of all the regulations as much as we can, and again, really focused just on that core message and making sure that we're not neglecting this future consumer, because inevitably it will be there soon, as we all know and hope.
Great. Well, on that note, I think that's a good place to stop. So I just want to thank Anna, Kimberly, and Kyle for their time, and more importantly, or equally as important, ThinkLA.
Thank you. That was great. So on behalf of ThinkLA, appreciate everyone coming out tonight. Thank you to all the speakers. Hope you got a lot of good insight about what's been going on in the cannabis industry. There's so much more to come. Next event is going to be 500 people. This was just a small room. It was constrained. We are so excited at ThinkLA, and and seeing what's been going on in the cannabis space. And hopefully you can join ThinkLA, think about it as an individual or as your company. Come out to more events like this. Thank you again for coming tonight. And one last thing.
We have a raffle winner that has an awesome Papa and Barkley gift bag.
An infused massage. A masseuse will come to your house.
A masseuse will come to your house with an infused massage. Andy Robbins from Reister